When a man wounds a good woman, it's rarely about her. It's about his inability to understand what he's been given. And yet, in the process, he ignites something within her that even she may not have known was there. See, a good woman, when she is hurt, doesn't shatter. She doesn't collapse into nothingness. What she does is far more powerful. She transforms. And transformation isn't loud. It doesn't come with anger or rage or vindictiveness. It begins in silence, in reflection, in those sleepless nights when she questions everything, her worth, her choices, her love. But the key difference with a good woman is that those questions don't break her spirit, they sharpen it. Because at her core, she wasn't built on superficial foundations. She loved with honesty. She gave without keeping score. She stood by him even when he was falling apart, hoping her belief in him might help him believe in himself. That kind of love, it's not weakness, it's strength in its rawest form. And when it's betrayed, the aftermath isn't chaos, it's clarity. She begins to see what she couldn't before. She sees the moments she made excuses for, the times she stayed silent to keep peace that wasn't real, the countless sacrifices she made for a man who didn't know how to receive them. And instead of becoming bitter, she becomes wise. She doesn't harden her heart, she simply starts guarding it. Not with a wall, but with discernment. She doesn't lash out. She levels up. This is what most men don't realize when they hurt a good woman. They think she'll always be there, that her compassion will outweigh her pain, that her loyalty will overlook their inconsistency. But there's a line, and once it's crossed, she doesn't go back. Not because she stopped loving, but because she started learning. And what she learns changes everything. In that transformation, she starts rebuilding, slowly, thoughtfully. She pours her energy back into herself, into her dreams, into her growth. And the irony is, while he believed he diminished her, what he really did was awaken her. And there's nothing more dangerous to a man who took a woman for granted than watching her become what he was too blind to value. Not out of revenge, but out of resolve. And here's the part that stings most. The man usually doesn't see this coming. He thought she'd stay. He thought she needed him. He thought she'd wait while he figured himself out. But she didn't. She outgrew the version of herself that settled for being misunderstood. She stepped into the version of herself that knows better. Not because she's heartless, but because she's finally healed. That transformation, that rise, it's not for him to witness. It's not his to interrupt. It's hers, entirely, authentically. And while he might wake up one day longing for the version of her who loved him unconditionally, she won't be there because she became the woman who now loves herself with the same intensity she once gave to someone who couldn't receive it. And that right there is the real consequence of hurting a good woman. She doesn't just move on. She evolves beyond. There's a truth men often realize too late. Good women don't beg. They don't chase after the ones who damaged them. They retreat. They reflect. And then they rise. And it's not because they don't feel the pain. It's not because they weren't deeply invested or because the love wasn't real. It's because when you've poured your heart into someone, given them the most honest version of who you are, and they still choose to hurt you, something in you breaks, yes, but something else wakes up. You begin to recognize your value not through his eyes, but through your own healing. And that shift is irreversible. See, when a man hurts a good woman, he expects her to fall apart. He expects her to lose herself in sorrow, to come back seeking closure or understanding or the tiniest ounce of validation. But good women don't do that. Not forever. They may grieve. They may stumble. They may cry for nights on end. But they don't stay there. Because good women have depth. They have resilience carved out of every time they loved fully and were let down. And when they walk away, they don't slam the door. They close it quietly, with dignity, with peace, and most importantly, with finality. So the mistake he makes is assuming her silence is weakness. It's not. Her silence is a decision to protect her peace, to no longer plead for someone to see her worth, to no longer shrink herself to fit into a story where she's constantly undervalued, because love isn't supposed to feel like emotional warfare. And when a good woman finally accepts that, she doesn't lash out. She lets go. And letting go, that's the part men don't see coming. They think they can come back when they're ready, when life has taught them a lesson, when they've realized that the grass wasn't greener, it was artificial. But by the time they come around, she's already grown in soil far richer than anything they ever offered. She's not bitter. She's just beyond him now. And that's a pain few men are prepared to face. The pain of realizing they lost something irreplaceable by their own hand. Because there's something sacred about a woman who gives without games, who loves with no agenda, who shows up consistently with grace, with loyalty, and with heart. And when that woman stops showing up, it's not drama, it's not manipulation, it's transformation. And the silence she leaves behind, that silence echoes louder than any argument ever could. Don't look for her in other women, in fleeting connections, in shallow praise, but he won't find her because she was one of one. And once you've known that kind of love, the kind that holds you even when you're difficult, that stays when it's hard, that believes when you don't believe in yourself, nothing else compares. That's the cost of hurting a good woman. It's not just that she's gone, it's that you'll spend years looking for fragments of her in people who can't hold a candle to what you threw away. She didn't lose him, he lost her. And that difference will echo through the rest of his life. A man who hurts a good woman often believes in the moment that there will be no consequence for his actions. He convinces himself that she'll stay, that she'll tolerate just a little more, that somehow her love will keep cushioning the blows. But what he doesn't realize is that her loyalty, while deep, is not infinite. It has boundaries, and it has limits. And when a good woman reaches that limit, something shifts. Not just in how she sees him, but in how she sees herself. She starts to understand that the problem isn't love. It's not even that she loved too deeply. The real issue is that she gave the right kind of love to the wrong kind of man. A man who didn't know how to receive it. A man who maybe deep down didn't believe he deserved it. And when a man feels unworthy of real love, he'll often destroy it before it has the chance to reveal him. Because to stand in the presence of a woman who truly sees you, your wounds, your failures, your darkness, and still loves you, that's terrifying if you haven't faced those parts of yourself. And so, instead of rising to meet her love, he runs from it. He lashes out. He dismisses it. Not because it's fake, but because it's too real, too revealing. And when that woman finally walks away, something tragic happens. Not to her, but to him. Because while she may grieve, she also grows. She reinvents. She heals. But he begins to unravel. Slowly at first, quietly, until one day he's surrounded by emptiness. And he can't quite understand how it all slipped through his finger. This is the truth about hurting someone whose only intention was to love you. You don't just lose them in the moment. You lose everything that could have been built with them. You lose every version of yourself that only they brought out. You lose the calm they gave you in your storms, the belief they held for you when you doubted, the softness they showed you in a world that taught you to be hard. That's the price, not just their absence, but the absence of who you were when you were loved by them. You see, a good woman doesn't want a perfect man. She wants an honest one. She wants effort, growth, humility. And when you refuse to bring those to the table, when you choose ego over vulnerability, pride over accountability, you're not just rejecting her love, you're rejecting your own opportunity for transformation. What makes this more tragic is that men who hurt good women often come to this realization when it's far too late, when she's already rebuilt, when she's already discovered her peace without them. And they're left with memories, with regret, and with a silent question echoing through every failed connection that follows. Why did I push her away? And the answer always comes back to this: because you weren't ready to be loved that deeply, because you hadn't yet done the work, because you thought she'd always be there. But love doesn't beg. Real love doesn't stay where it's mistreated. And when you learn that lesson the hard way, it doesn't just haunt you, it changes you. And by the time you're ready, she's long gone. What many men fail to understand is that hurting a good woman doesn't end when she walks away. The aftermath isn't clean and it isn't instant. The pain you've caused doesn't simply vanish because the relationship has ended or because time has passed. The ripple effects are far-reaching, and they often come back to you in ways you never expected. When you hurt someone who gave you their heart without reservation, you don't just damage their trust, you damage something sacred within yourself. See, a man doesn't leave an encounter with a good woman unchanged. Whether he appreciated her or not, her presence leaves a mark. A woman who truly cared, who offered her love with sincerity, patience, and strength, she becomes part of your inner world. Her voice remains in your memory, her support echoes in moments of doubt, her belief in you lingers even after you've pushed her away. And when she's gone, those echoes don't disappear. They grow louder in the silence she leaves behind. That silence has a way of catching up to you. It shows up in the middle of the night when your mind isn't busy enough to distract itself. It creeps in during quiet moments when your defenses are down. And you start to realize what you've lost. Not just a woman, but the kind of woman who loved you past your pain, who forgave you more times than she should have, who saw your potential and tried to bring it out because she believed you were worth it. And you threw that away. It's in those moments that regret sets in, not just for what happened, but for what didn't. For the man you could have become with her beside you. For the life you could have built. And maybe you try to fill that void with something else, someone else. But it doesn't work. Because what you had wasn't surface level. It wasn't just comfort or company. It was connection. It was depth. It was the kind of love that only comes once or twice in a lifetime if you're lucky. And once you've experienced it, everything else feels thin, lighter, less true. You find yourself comparing, not because you want to, but because something in you is still tethered to that depth you walked away from. You start to realize that the price of hurting a good woman isn't just losing her. It's losing a version of yourself you only ever saw when you were with her. That's the cost. That's the hidden punishment. You may not see it immediately, but it builds over time. It accumulates in your failed attempts to replicate what you had, in your inability to be fully present with someone new, in your growing awareness that she wasn't just another chapter, she was a turning point, and you missed it. When a man hurts a woman who only wanted to love him, the pain doesn't just live in her, it reflects back onto him. Because a good woman is not easily replaced. She's not easily forgotten. And once she's gone, so is the chance to be the man you were starting to become in her presence. And the cruel irony is, by the time you realize that, it's already too late. When a man hurts a good woman, what he often fails to grasp is that he's not just causing pain in the moment. He's shaping the way she views herself, love, and the world around her. A woman who was once soft, trusting, and open-hearted doesn't simply bounce back from betrayal or neglect. She adapts. She learns. And tragically, what she learns often hardens her. She starts to doubt what she once believed so confidently. She begins to question whether the love she gave so freely was foolish, whether her loyalty was naive, whether her belief in him, so steady, so enduring, was simply a mistake. That transformation is quiet. It doesn't come with grand declarations or angry speeches. It happens internally, over time, as a way to protect herself from ever feeling that same level of devastation again. And what's left behind is someone more guarded, someone who doesn't trust as quickly, someone who's built walls where there used to be doors. You see, when you hurt a good woman, you force her to evolve. And she does. She becomes stronger, no doubt. But that strength is born from pain she should have never had to carry. She becomes wiser, yes, but at the cost of innocence she didn't want to lose. And here's the part that should haunt any man who truly reflects on what he's done. You were the reason. You were the one who pushed her into that transformation. You turned her love into silence, her warmth into distance, her loyalty into skepticism. And here's the real tragedy. She didn't want to become this person. She wanted to stay soft. She wanted to keep believing in love, in people, in the idea that if she gave her best, she'd receive the same in return. But the wound you left told her otherwise. It whispered to her that giving too much is dangerous, that caring deeply only invites pain, that loving someone without holding back is a risk not worth taking. So now she walks through life differently, not bitter necessarily, but changed, less trusting, more measured. She listens more, speaks less, observes instead of giving right away. She's learned how to keep parts of herself hidden, not because she wants to play games, but because she's not willing to bleed for someone who hasn't earned the right to see her vulnerability. And while this change might be necessary for her healing, it should be a sobering reality for the man who caused it. Because what's been lost is something pure. And once purity has been exchanged for self-protection, it rarely returns in the same form. You didn't just lose her. You helped create someone the world will never fully see again. Not because she's broken, but because she's cautious now. She's learned that love is not always safe. And that lesson, once learned, is hard to unlearn. The worst part is, she'll likely go on to be everything you never appreciated for someone else. But that person will have to work harder, dig deeper, and show more consistency to reach the parts of her that once flowed so freely. You closed the door that someone else will have to slowly unlock. And you did it not because she failed you, but because you couldn't handle what she brought to the table. You weren't ready for her depth, for her love, for her loyalty. And now you have to live with the knowledge that she became someone different, stronger, colder, wiser, because of you. That is the price of hurting a woman who only ever wanted to give you her best. When a man hurts the woman who gave him everything, it's easy to assume that she'll simply walk away and that's the end of it. But the reality is far more complex. The truth is that when she leaves, when she pulls back, when she finally walks away from him, it's not just about the pain of that moment. It's about the culmination of every small act of neglect, betrayal, and disregard that she's been enduring. She's been trying to hold on, trying to make things work, trying to give him more chances, because that's what loyalty is about. But eventually, even the strongest hearts reach a breaking point. What you fail to realize in those moments is that when she walks away, she's not just leaving you. She's walking away from a version of herself that was willing to love unconditionally, to believe in the best of you, to trust that love would be reciprocated. That version of her, the one who believed in giving without counting the cost, is gone. And she doesn't return easily. It's hard to comprehend the full weight of that shift unless you've experienced it firsthand. You see, when a woman leaves, she isn't doing it out of spite or frustration alone. It's not about seeking revenge or trying to make you feel guilty. No, it's about survival. It's about the realization that staying in a relationship where she's being hurt isn't an option anymore. It's about coming to the painful conclusion that her value can no longer be measured by how much she's willing to sacrifice for someone who doesn't appreciate her. And when she walks, it's not just because she's had enough, it's because she's realized that she deserves more. For a man who has hurt her, the most difficult thing to understand is that she doesn't need you the way she once did. You were once her anchor, her confidant, her love. But now, in her decision to leave, she's found something even stronger. Her own sense of self. She's found the courage to walk away, to let go of something that was never truly right for her. And in doing so, she begins to realize that her worth was never tied to your approval. But here's the thing, this transformation doesn't happen overnight. She may leave physically, but the emotional scars, the doubt, the questions, the what-ifs linger long after she's gone. It's not just about healing from the hurt you caused. It's about unlearning all the things she believed about herself while she was with you. The things she believed about love, about trust, about her own capacity for happiness. And that, my friends, takes time. When she finds that strength to walk away, it isn't just for herself. It's a message to you. A message that you can't keep taking love for granted. That you can't continue to hurt someone who has shown you nothing but care. She may never say it directly, but in her departure, there's a clear lesson. Love is not something you play with. It's not something to be tossed aside when it no longer suits you. And it certainly isn't something that should be taken for granted. In time, the man who has hurt her may come to realize what he's lost. He may reflect on the days when she was there, offering him the best of herself, and he may regret the things he did, the things he said, the ways in which he took her love for granted. But by the time that realization hits, she may already be too far gone. She may have already built a life for herself, a life that no longer revolves around his approval or validation. And while that might be painful for him to accept, it's also something he needs to understand. When a man hurts a good woman, he doesn't just lose her in the moment. He loses the chance to ever truly experience her love again. And that is a price few are ever prepared to pay.